What's happening, YouTube? This is Hayes Anderson. I'm going to try to put together a video of me putting together some cables for you. A couple audio cables and a MIDI cable. So a while back I bought this roll of 300-foot TRS cable from Silverback. I've used about 200 feet of it and got another 100 feet left. And here's an old cable that I built a while back that is just a regular TS cable, and it's pretty short. I think it's only about like 3 feet. This one is a 12-foot length that I cut off a while back, and I'm going to use this to make an XLR to TRS quarter-inch cable. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I need something to interface into my Roland Boutique VPO3. It has an XLR input for the vocoder, and this way I'll be able to have a length of cable going from it to the patch bay, and I'll be able to patch in any external source that I want to from the area of the mixer. Before I was using this adapter, and it was a bit clumsy because this was sticking out of the face of the synthesizer, and it was kind of easy to bump into, which would have been a bad thing. Okay, so I'm going to cut open this thing and show you what's going on. But the first thing I want to do off camera is I need to drill a hole into the base of this TRS connector. And the way that the RF shielding works is inside the cable is a copper shield that surrounds, you can't really see it right now, but it basically surrounds the inside of what's in the cable. And it, when you connect it to the circuit ground via this area right here, and then this cable is inserted, it will shunt any interference, RF interference, to circuit ground. At least that's the idea. Okay, so out here in the garage, I'm just going to drill a hole into the base so I can more easily secure the shielding into this. Now you may ask, why didn't it have a hole in the first place? Good question. One thing that I did notice is that these come with this little tab right here, and I guess the idea is that you would just sort of put the wire, your shield wire, run it down here this way and just solder it to the base of it, and then like this would just, you know, have a flap. But if you do that, you know, you just basically have a solder connection from the wire to the base, and that's actually a pretty good connection. However, it's better to have a hole than have this thing wrapped around. A lot of other connectors that I've bought in the past, they have the holes already in them. So I'm just going to use the smallest drill bit that I have and just, you know, drill a hole right about past where the other two connector holes are, about right midway, about here in the middle. And I want to make sure to try to get it right in the center. Also, I found that the smallest drill bit is just enough to get a big enough hole to handle anything larger, and I might risk actually breaking off and cutting into the sides here. And if that happened, it still wouldn't be the end of the world. It's just you're not going to have the best mechanical connection you could make. Hole successfully drilled. That was pretty good. That will definitely do. Next, I can place the end of the cable into the connector to figure out how much I need to cut back. And as you can see, it's about that much. It's very important that you don't cut into the copper shield and you just cut the outer insulator. These are my cutters, by the way, nothing fancy, just real simple stuff. And I can't really give you any tips on how to cut into this stuff properly. I mean, it's kind of an art form, maybe in another video, but I can only show you holding one hand. I got to hold the camera with the other hand, so sorry. But I'll try to go through each step of the way as best as I can. Now, figuring out the length to cut back for the XLR connector is a little bit different. We have to go by really nothing. So I'm just going to take it back about the same length. Okay, I did okay with that one, but I did nick one of the copper wires. It'll be okay though, I'm not too worried about it. You can get away with nicking one or two. And there's plenty on this because it is the shield. And all you do is just take that off. And if you can see, there's a white kind of cotton paper cloth that's protecting the shield, that's protecting the inside insulators away from the shield. Of course, the inside, not insulators, the inside conductors. The inside conductors have their own insulation as well. So I'm not exactly sure what the point of the cloth is. I think it might have something to do with the flexibility of the cable itself. And that's probably more what it has to do, more with the flexibility and the longevity and robustness of the cable than to do with any kind of protection against RF interference. So I'm going to, what I'm going to do next, this is very tricky because if I wrap all of if I twist all these copper strands together, it's going to produce something that's too thick to fit into the hole that I drilled. And I could not drill a larger hole because it would cut into the sides. So I'm going to take this down to about 1/3 and 2/3 and twist them individually and then twist them around each other and cut off the 2/3 and leave the 1/3 behind. If that doesn't make sense, don't worry, I'll show you. And here I have the copper shield split into like 2/3 on the left and 1/3 on the right, roughly. And you can see the cloth that is covering our two inside conductors, red and white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off. I'm just going to use a scalpel to carefully get in between the two inside conductors and make a slice up in through this cloth. And then I'm going to pull everything back and just use a pair of scissors to cut it. And it's kind of a pain in the butt, but it gets the job done. And with the outer cloth cut and kind of out of the way, we can see more of what's on the inside. It's a whole bunch of strands of strings. And this definitely is for the robustness and the flexibility of the cable. Now, not all audio cable is going to have this, and this is some pretty good cable. I really like the quality of this. Also, these interconductors are insulated with some pretty thick insulation, which is really nice. So what I'm going to do, as I said before, is like cut away this paper and this cloth, and these strings, and then I'm going to trim up. If you look very carefully, you'll see the copper coming out of these interconductors. I'm going to trim those away a little bit down below the base, and the reason why I do that is because when I go to take away the tops, strip the top conductors, those are going to get in the way, and they're going to make it harder for me to pull the insulation off. This end is almost finished. This is the one for the 1/4" end. Before I took off the interconnector, the ends here for the interconnectors, the red and the white that you see there, I wanted to show you the ends first. What I do is I twist instead of just taking them straight off. So this way, when the conductors come off, the strands are already twisted on the inside. It helps things out a whole lot, I think. Now, if you look at what's going on with the shield over here on the far right, it's got almost like a mouth coming out here, like a top and a bottom. The top is the 1/3 that I told you about. The bottom is the 2/3. I have a twist around them. I'm going to solder it at the base here so that they're fully connected, and then I will snip off the bottom half. And this way I'll have pretty much a full connection to the inner side of the shield without any strands that would just be cut off and sort of bare hanging out by themselves. This is a trick that I use for tinning the ends of the conductors. Instead of trying to hold the soldering iron, I set the iron on my little PCB holder, and then with one hand I hold the wire, the cable, and the other hand I hold the solder, and I just touch them to the iron. It works out a whole lot better. Now, I wish that I could show you this, but again, I have to hold the camera with one hand. So when we come back, you'll see the tinned insulators, and I'm going to go ahead and trim off the bottom of the shield. So before I continue, I should determine which conductor is going to go where. In this case, I'm going to take red to the tip, white to the ring, and of course shield is going to go to the shield. When I get to the XLR, I'm going to have shield going to 1, the red is going to go to 2, and white is going to go to 3. But we're kind of jumping ahead. It's actually fairly obvious which of the tabs connect to which of the tip, ring, or sleeve, but if you're ever in doubt, you can always just use a multimeter and check for continuity. Alright, hopefully you can see that. I haven't clamped anything down yet. I just inserted the tin leads into the tab holes. So what I will do is I will crimp those support kind of tabs right there around the outer cable, and then I will bend. Actually, probably that one I will not bend. I'm just going to leave it like it is and solder it straight on. But these two I'm going to bend back down, like at a 180-degree angle. That should be enough to kind of catch whatever's going on. And the reason why I don't want to bend it is because it's going to leave too much. So I'm holding it at this angle. I want that to be flat. That whole left side right there, I want it to be really flat so that when the sleeve is screwed into it, it won't rub up against it and cause trouble. Everything is crimped and clamped, and now I've brought out the little clampy jaws here to hold the cable. If you'll notice, what I've done on the alligator clip is I've put some heat shrink, and that just kind of prevents the alligator clips from cutting into the cable. And yeah, I'm just going to solder this together now. And just real quick while I'm at it here, just so you can see, I already have the sleeve is ready to go in the right direction. Always double check and make sure, because there's nothing worse than pulling the sleeve up, realizing you remembered it, but you put it the wrong way. All right, that's pretty much done. There's a bit of a nub coming out of the ground sleeve, but I think it'll be okay. When I slide that plastic little thing around there, it will help to get the shield, the outer sleeve screwed around there very easily. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to move on to the XLR side. And there it is. I haven't tested, but I'm pretty sure it's going to work. Let's move on to the XLR. I have tinned the conductors for the other end, and before I attach them to the XLR connector here, I'm going to fill up these little wells with solder, and I've cut off these little pieces of solder, and I'm going to stick them into the little wells here, and then heat the wells so that the solder gets melted into that. And the idea is then it's going to be easier for me to just insert the conductors one at a time into this. I'm also going to use my little helping hand over here to hold everything. So let's get going. So the idea here is to hold this with my right hand with the plier so I don't burn myself as I apply the hot iron with my left hand to each of the wells to melt the solder within them. That was fairly successful. This is the final part. Just got to make sure that I connect the shield to 1, the red to 2, and the white to 3, and I'll be good to go. This part is actually tricky. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm probably just going to solder in 1, probably the ground into here, and then once that's kind of stabilized, I'll just do the rest of them. So I might show you this. Nah, I'm going to show you after I get all 3 of these in here. It shouldn't take long. Just a quick aside, I put the outer little thing here on here first, threaded it through, and what's nice is this little clip, it actually just clips on, so if you forget it, you can still get this on in time, but this one, no, you need to get this on. As for the outer shell, I think that I don't need to connect it at this point. I just need to solder on the end connector, and then that will slide into it. That's the whole point, is you can take that out to service this. So let's do that. Okay, here's how I'm going to do this. If you notice, I have the sleeve ready to go. I'm just going to hold this underneath here with my right hand and solder each one with my left hand. So what I've done is I've sort of pre-tinned both the what I'm connecting to and the conductors in themselves. So all I needed to do was just sort of tack each one with a little bit of heat, and they essentially glue the whole process together. So now I can use both hands to go through and to just make sure that I've got plenty of solder and plenty of flux. The wells are filled up, and now I just need to close everything up and do a final test. And here it is with the sleeve ready to go. Just got to put that thing onto here. Fingers crossed. I haven't looked at this before, so here we go. And that's a pass. Moving on to the Midi cables. These are the connectors I'm going to use. They're fairly cheap ones that I got from Tata. I should go back and point out that the connectors I used on the last cable, the XLR and the TRS, those are Neutrix. They're very nice. I got these, I can't remember what they cost, but they're not very expensive. So this is another connector that I've already taken apart so we can see what it looks like. And I've also flayed out the cable that I'm going to use so you can see the 5 conductors on the inside. Now if you can see, one of them is actually not insulated. This one right here, let me back up. This one is not insulated, it's bare, but the other 4 are all insulated. So looking at my diagram, when we see the actual front here, I guess looking at it like this, we're going from left to right. You've got yellow, red, and then the bare conductor, which I have S for silver, and then white and black. Now, you don't have to go by that convention, but it is how this original cable was already wired up. I bought this cable as a 25-foot HOSA cable, and I cut it up into various slices and just added my own connectors as I saw fit. So I got some 6-foot ones, some 3-foot ones, and I think this is like a 2-foot or something, whatever. Of interest is this piece right here. On each of the outer ring hair shells, you'll see that there's this inside foil, and it's not actually being connected to circuit ground in any case. So I really don't know what the purpose of it is. We'll move on though. But these cables are just Midi cables. They're not as fancy as the TRS cable that I showed you before. They don't have the nice cloth and the nice strands working with them. I'm not going to do the trick where I fill up these little wells like I did with the XLR connector. The reason why is because these are very, very tiny. They're much smaller than the XLRs, and it's just It's just as easy to go ahead and tin the wires instead and get them inserted in and just sort of use the solder to tack them in place, and we'll go from there. I'm about to tin these conductors. There's 5 of them, as I stated before. Now for MIDI we only need to use 3, and this is why we can get away with using TRS connectors. However, with MIDI 2.0 this may change. Anytime I solder MIDI cables, I always connect all 5 conductors, mainly just for mechanical connection. It's better. But however, it is possible that with the MIDI 2.0 standard, there will be more conductors that are being used. So with MIDI 2.0, TRS might not work. Now my guess is that they're probably just going to stick with the 3 conductors. We're getting close to being done actually. I've got the conductors all tinned and ready to go. Now all I need to do is just get this inserted down and into the right holes. So what I'll do is I'll take this out of the holder first, I'll get situated which conductors go into which holes, and then I'll get this back into this little clamp thing, and it'll be better situated that way, and then I'll just use both hands to solder the conductors into the holes. The important thing of course is to make sure that I get the colors correct, which is why I have not only a front but a back diagram, because when we're looking at this, where I'm soldering into is the back. So the black will be over here on the left, not on the right. Something to definitely take into consideration, and you don't want to make a mistake. I mean, you can correct any mistake you make with this, is the great thing about it, but it takes a while to clean up your mistakes. I'm going to try to zoom in before I solder this. I've got all the conductors down into the cups, and I'm going to use both hands to solder. I got the connectors soldered into the cups. This should do the trick. I actually had to use the flux this time. I usually almost always use flux whenever I do these MIDI connectors because they're so small, and it's really hard to get the tip of the iron to just touch where you want it to, and you'll get some solder bridges pretty easily. So the flux helps with preventing the solder bridges, and it also helps because as I'm holding the iron to this for a long time, I'm burning out whatever flux is already in the solder, so it's nice to just kind of add some back. I think I did a much better job soldering this side. No extra flux needed this time. I'm just kind of getting a better understanding of how to get the heat transfer going. This time I held the tip of the iron more at the cup and just kind of held it there for a while, and then I moved it up to the wire. Then I applied the solder, and that did a better job of allowing the solder to drip down into the cup. So as it stands, this is pretty much a working MIDI cable. It's fully capable of delivering MIDI signal. However, it's probably going to break eventually. These wires will bend and twist and eventually just kind of snap right off. So let's get this thing secure. So I have attached the back plate to the MIDI connector, and now all I need to do is attach the front plate and then slide this outside housing up into place. The MIDI cable is done, but does it work? And no, it does not. Well, what did I do wrong? Silly me, I am an idiot. Look very carefully. You'll see here that you got yellow and then red. But up here, I put red and then yellow. Oh well. So I'm just going to correct that real quickly. I'm going to unsolder these 2 pieces. Probably going to have to wick away all that solder out of that cup. We'll figure something out though. We'll make this work. That was pretty dumb. We got it though. Made a huge mess in the process. Had to get the solder wick out. Basically what I did is I just wrapped the wick around the cup and then added a whole bunch of flux. And then when I applied the hot iron to it, all the solder just went right into the solder wick. So I got it flipped around. Let's go give it a test. One more time. There we go. That's more like it. I'm going to give it a wiggle to make sure that there's no continuity break. If there would be, these lights over here will light up. So when I first start, you'll see that they're on. And I have to hit reset, and this tells me that I really have a good connection. Awesome. Let's build one more cable. This one is going to be a simple TS cable, but we're back to using the TRS roll that I had, the silverback. So I'm going to grab a couple connectors here. I got a few to choose from. And I like these. I got these off eBay for about, I can't remember, fairly cheap, less than $1 each, I think. And I like them because they have these spring retainers, which help to kind of keep things from breaking off. Very nice. I've taken apart one of the connectors so you can see what's on the inside. We have 2 tabs I can solder to with holes ready to go. Just 2 connections. Got these ready to go to be tinned. Before I do that, however, there's going to be a little bit of a difference. So with the TRS, what I would do is I would tin everything and then slice off the bottom 2/3 of the shield as before, and then I would also tin the red and the white. But because this is a TS, I'm going to take the red and the white and I'm going to twist them together. Now this is very important. It's TS, you don't want to use, like, say for example, the white as your shield, as your ground, and the red as the tip. The reason why is because that totally invalidates what the shield is doing. You want the shield to be the ground. So in this case, I have like an extra connector that I'm not using, the red or the white. So rather than leave one unused, I'm just going to twist them together and lower the impedance. That should make some pretty decent 2-conductor cable right there. Let's go ahead and attach the connectors. Alright, I told you that one's going to be easy. Let's go ahead and test her out. And that is exactly what we want to see for a TS cable. Awesome. Well, I hope this video turns out well. I hope you learned something if that's what you came here to do. I've got a lot more of these to make. I've got 2 more MIDI cables to go, and I also have 2 more of these cables to make. But I'll do that off screen, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.